Basically, the way that we use the concept of Sotapan returning 7 times is, imagine that several people get into an argument, not with each other, but with an unknown source, one at a time. Okay. The ordinary person, when he gets into an argument, he will argue and argue and argue and argue and maybe leave and come back another day and argue and argue and argue again.
Yes.
Over and over and over and over and over again, people get stuck on topics that they care about, and it's because of the caring. Okay. So the Sotapan is one who will get into an argument and after 7 times will wake up. And then he'll put that argument to rest.
So seven times of 7 processes of dependent origination.
Okay, you can think of it that way. 7 cycles of dependent origination that winds him up in dukkha, and then he'll wake up.
But that would be a very short amount of time, right?
Yes,
Because yeah,
precisely so. Okay, right, within 5 minutes or so.
yeah, for example, yeah.
Let's say 7, just for the point. Okay,
Yeah.
and so um, then the once returner is going to, let us say, shout, yell 1 time, like he hears somebody arguing and he says, "Stop it." And then he'll wake up. And he only has one rude thing to say. And after that, he'll wake up. And then he puts an end to it. Okay. The anagami is the one who does shout in the mind, but it doesn't make it to his mouth. And so he does not return to the dukkha. He keeps it in his mind and he doesn't let it out. And then for the arahant, it doesn't come up. Now that's
Okay.
an easy way for you to understand it because this all has to do with the rebirth, is the rebirth of the person, the self in dukkha. That if you understand a little bit about Piticca Samuppada, then you know that the birth immediately is followed by dukkha.
Yes.
That's the whole point, is being born is dukkha. If you have a birth, then you will have old age, sickness, and death. If you are
Yes.
not born, then it does not get old, you do not get sick of it, and you do not get defeated by it.
Yeah.
Okay, now there is a lot of magic in, let us call it, the Buddhist religion. Or I prefer to it in the sense of, because it what's important to you, Western Buddhism. That's because people want magic. They care about it. Okay. And so
Yes.
the other day, you and I were talking about 6 answers to a yes and no question. Do you remember that?
Yes. The 6 answers, as in either is, either isn't, either is and is not,
It's either
or
yes, no, both, neither, I don't know, and I don't care. Those are
right.
the 6. All right. Now,
Yes.
where most people get caught is because they care about things. Now, let's define the word care because it's got some various qualities. We can say that the 2 kinds of cares are caring for and caring about. For instance, you can care for a sick friend. Normally, that's done, let us say, in a professional situation, without caring about them. You just care for them because that's your job. You care for them because you've got the skills. But most of the time, people care for people because they care about them. So when that person dies, even though they've had care, then the person who cares about them is going to suffer. The person who cares for them may or may not suffer depending upon whether they care about them or not. There is actually a sutta, I think it's number 87, that has the title of it is Grief Comes from Those Who Are Dear. Now, we'll talk about this at a later time, but I'm just talking about the title. If you hold people dear, then those people will cause you grief. If you care about your mom, then when she dies, you're going to grieve.
Yes.
All right. If you don't care about her, then you may not even hear about her death at her death. It may be months later. And because you don't care, you're not in a state of grief. You may be, in fact, you should, people will have the thought of, oh, well, I don't care about my mom, but I care that I don't care.
Yes.
Or that I wish that I did care. I wish I had a mom that I could care about. And so they're still in grief. So if we can take that point about, remember that the last time I didn't use the word care with you, I used the word irrelevant.
Yes.
Right? When things we don't know do not affect us, then they are irrelevant. But almost
Would you
everything
say
happens.
affect?
Pardon?
There's. Would you say affect as in emotionally or causally?
I didn't hear that last word.
Causally,
Still don't hear it. Say it close.
as in a cause. But maybe I should. My headphones are empty, unfortunately.
You're
Wait,
using
let
the
me.
word scar.
Cause. Here, I typed it in the chat.
Now I see the word cause.
Yeah.
I don't understand your question yet.
So things can affect us like in a physical sense or in an emotional sense.
Well, if they affect you in a physical sense and you don't care, or if it affects you in an emotional way, it's probably because you did care. Let us say
Yes.
somebody slapped you. Now, in Christianity, they have the idea of, we'll just turn the other cheek, don't care about it. Okay, but if you care, then it's going to affect you emotionally. That getting slapped in the face may hurt a little bit, but it's going to hurt a whole lot more emotionally because you don't like it.
Yes.
And so, in fact, the physical is just secondary. It's got really nothing to do with it. It's all about caring is the grief comes because you don't like it. Bad
Right.
feelings, dukkha, okay? And in that particular point, you are reborn as the one who got slapped.
Yeah.
Rather than being reborn as the one who just turns the other cheek. Okay? One's in
Okay.
dukkha, the other one is not. Because they cared. They cared not to get slapped. Okay? If you can understand that, then you can also understand that the issue that you have with rebirth is because you care. It matters to you.
Yes.
Yes, of
But
course it does.
yes, it
Please
does. It
don't
does
go into
bother me.
denial.
It
Recognize that
does
you
bother
care
me.
about
That's
it.
true. But okay, let's say as a to make what this sounds like to me. Um, well, I might not care in that moment. Okay, let's say it is an issue for me
You
now.
called and talked to me 3 times already. You care. Give it up, boy.
I do care. I do care.
You
So
care.
let's
That's the
say
whole point. You care.
if I follow your instructions, and that would lead me to the point of not caring, is there
Yes,
any
that's the whole
guarantee that I would?
because caring
Yeah.
is the same word. In fact, it's a better word in English than clinging. In Paticca Samuppada, it goes from I like it or I don't like it, followed by I want it or I want to get rid of it. And then the clinging is because I care. Caring and clinging are the same thing.
But does not caring about something break this chain and make sure that you don't care about it ever again?
Well, your ever beginning is caring. Ever again is caring.
Well, to me, it seems like,
You're clinging to the future is another way of saying it. Ever again's is part of the vocabulary that you picked up from childhood. It's rubbed in with every religion. And so you've gotten into caring about forevers and forevers.
well, let's say that I do heroin, then I would also not care about
Pardon?
about anything. If I would do certain drugs, then I would also not care about anything for short while. But
Well,
that doesn't prevent
you
the
mentioned the noble states, okay? So the Sotapan is going to catch himself caring and then stop caring. The Sotagami is going to care as soon as he lets it out. The Anagami cares, but he's quick enough to not let that caring out. The Arahat just don't care.
so that seems final for the arrowhead.
Pardon?
For the last stage, the arrowhead, that
Uh-huh.
seems final because he doesn't care anymore.
Well, that's an anymore. There you
Yes.
go again, off into caring about the future and about permanence.
Yes.
No, he doesn't care right now. And if he's in the habit of not caring right now, then next time he might not care then too. Depends upon what habits we've got.
Yes. Okay.
All right. So the issue is that you care a whole lot about a whole lot of stuff, and that gives you pain because you don't get your way. You care to have it this way, and it turns out that way. And if you didn't give a flying rip, then it
Yes.
wouldn't matter to you.
Yeah.
All
Yes.
right. Now you're beginning to understand. We can have many examples of this. One of them is that there's an election in the U.S. coming up in a couple of weeks, 3 weeks or so. And a whole lot of people care. Hmm.
That's
And
right.
so the Democrats are going to lose some, and the Democrats are going to win some, and the Republicans are going to lose some, and the Republicans are going to win some. And the wins that they have are good, but the losses they care about. It's because of the caring that they wind up being unhappy. And politics is then kind of a guarantee that you're going to be unhappy. The only way to
Right.
not be affected by politics is by not caring about it.
Yeah.
Okay? So you've already determined that you really don't know whether rebirth exists or not.
I do. Yeah.
Right, but you still care an awful lot about it.
Yes.
You
And
care
there,
about something you have no knowledge of, just like the Republicans and Democrats care about an election, and they right now don't have a clue about how things are going to work out. You don't
yes.
know what the future is going to be. The only thing that you know is that's what's happening right now. And yet, a
True.
lot of people are in great deal of suffering in all kinds of ways because they really care about something that they know nothing about.
Yeah. But the Buddha uh, did give some comments on people with the same issue that I have, and it's in the I think it's AN. Oh, that's not the Middle Discourses. That's a different one.
And Guitar and Nikaya, the
Yes.
numbers.
So
The
and then
Angu comes from angle or fingers. You can see
yes.
the word finger in there, so that means by the numbers. And Guitar and Nikaya,
So
the angle.
sorry,
Okay.
1 second. Just gotta plug in my charger. Okay. Um, so in AN 366, the Buddha talks about the four assurances.
One of the things that we can say is that the Anguttara Nikaya, when it's quoting the Buddha, it's actually second or third hand. The Anguttara Nikaya was done at probably centuries after the Buddha.
Okay. So is AN, is that part of the Pali canon, like of the
Yes, it certainly
Tripitaka?
is.
Yeah. So I've understood that you think the Visuddhimagga is a bad source.
Pardon?
That Buddha Ghosa's book, the Visuddhimagga, that is a bad source.
The Visuddhimagga was written over 1,000 years after the Buddha.
Yeah, by Buddha Ghosa, right?
And a
So
whole lot of ordinary people who call themselves Buddhist are very, very interested in that book.
yes.
But the more you read it with wisdom, the less value it has.
So what would you say are good sources for the suttas?
Pardon? Oh, all
Uh,
right. The original ones. The original ones like Udana,
Udana.
Sutta Nipata, and the Majjhima Nikaya was written at the time of the death of the Buddha, about the first year after his death. They had the first council, and that's what the outcome of that was, the Majjhima Nikaya.
Okay,
The
that's good
second
to know.
council, the outcome of that was the Vinaya, or the Vinaya.
Yeah, the monastic code.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm still going to talk about the AN just to hear your thoughts on
Okay, I
this.
do too. There's some good stuff in there. I just don't attribute
Yeah.
it to Buddha. I make sure that
Okay.
students understand that that stuff comes from later monks.
Yes. So in this particular sutta, he talks that anyone pursuing the Buddhist or the Buddha path has four assurances. First being,
I can't
if
hear
there
you.
is life after death. Okay. Um,
Perhaps if you
let me
get a little,
see.
your voice is actually kind of muddy for me. If you can get closer to the microphone, I might be able to understand you better. In fact, you've frozen completely now.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Yeah, sorry, I think it's my internet. Is this better audio quality?
Your audio quality is muffled. It's like
Okay,
you're too far
maybe
away
I
from the
can.
microphone.
Okay, I will check if I can change.
Well, just getting
Okay,
close to the
now it should
microphone
be.
would help.
Now I should be switched to my AirPods. Is that right?
Yeah, but the voice is exactly the same as it was. The headphones don't have anything to do with the microphone every time.
Okay, is this better? Now I'm closer.
No, but go ahead. Just speak very slowly for me.
Okay, so in the sutta it is said that there are 4 assurances for anyone pursuing the Buddhist path.
You're talking
The
about
first,
Anguttara 3, number 56?
it's 3 double point 66 AN.
Anguttara number 256.
Oh, that could be. I've got it written down as 366.
All
Let
right, I'll
me
go to
look
the
it up.
twos. Let me see what I can find on the twos. The number discourse is number twos. This is not working.
Oh, here I've got it. It is. I will send it to you.
All right.
And it's right at the bottom, the part I'm talking about. So I
Oh,
will repeat it.
this is the Kalama Sutta.
Yes.
Okay, that's Anguttara number 3, number 65 and 66.
Okay, so this
The
is
one
a
you
good
sent
source
me is
then.
the Kalama Sutta.
Yes.
All right. That's a
Okay.
very interesting one in the sense that it proves the point that I've been making solidly.
In what way? Sorry, I don't understand.
Well, the Kalama Sutta that I know, it says at the end of it, if there does exist rebirth, then you have the benefits of what you've been doing in this life. But if there is no rebirth, then you still have the benefits of it in this life.
Yes.
Yes, okay, so that's the whole point is that he's not confronting the Kalamas. This is the first time that they've talked to him, and he's trying to get them to move in the right direction.
Okay, but for me, it feels like there is one possibility that is not discussed in this sutta, and
Okay.
that is okay. So here there are 2 options given. Either there is a life after this one, and that life bears the actions and fruits of this life, or there isn't, or there is no life after this. But why does a next life have to bear the fruits of this life?
Well, that's the whole point is that's what is commonly believed by the common fools of the world. About 90% of human beings are very foolish and will believe anything because they care.
Yes.
And when they
But
stop caring and stop looking directly, they can see directly. If there is a world after death, if there is the fruit and the results of our actions, rightly or wrongly done, then this is the basis by which, with the breakup of the body after death, that I will appear in a good destination, a heavenly world. This is the first assurance that is there if they are depending upon the results of the actions. But the second point is the one that just destroys that. But if there is no world after death, if there is no fruit of the results of actions rightly or wrongly, then here in this present life, I look after myself with ease, free from hostility, free from ill will, free from trouble. There is no, this is the second assurance. Okay, so if you look at it like that, then it has to do with what's in our mind and how we behave, and the future life is irrelevant.
Yes. But okay, so this is according to the belief in karma that he describes as the people that he's talking to believe in karma. But
well, everybody believes in karma.
Yeah.
Because the word karma just means action.
Yes. Well, the law of karma then.
Karma and the result of karma. That's the karma
Yeah.
vipaka. The results of your actions. If there is a future life, then what you're doing now will result in benefits or loss in that. But even if you're not reborn, you still get the benefits here and now in this life. That's what the Buddha teaches. But if you believe in rebirth and then waste this life because you've got another chance, then guess what? You've wasted this life. And you have no assurances or guarantees that a future life does exist. All you do have the assurance is because you've wasted this life, you're going to have to put up with the results in the next life of having wasted this one.
Yes, that's a possibility. And
well, that's your only possibility right now, the way that you're clinging.
To be clear for my own intentions, like I've already decided for myself that even if there is the possibility of next life, I don't want to waste this life, so I want to do what I can in this life.
Okay, so all we have to do now is start doing that and just dropping things that you know nothing about and stop caring about it.
But there's one thing I just want to understand, so I'm on the same page as you. So as a Westerner, I also believe in that there is a possibility of randomness and chance in the universe. So in that
there is no such thing as randomness. Everything winds up being a pseudo-random.
Yes.
Okay, randomness only means that the human being who is calling it random doesn't understand all of the cause and effects that go into it. But nothing happens according to random. Everything happens according to cause and effect. That's physics.
Yes.
Okay, but Western people, let us say fools, who are not educated in physics or engineering, they've heard this word random.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, because we use it, we use the random number generators with computers for arranging decks of cards and all of that kind of stuff. So when a card deck is shuffled, people think of it as random. They're not random.
Yeah.
But the order of the cards, you do not know how the cards were shuffled and or stacked. That in fact, the good card shark, when he is shuffling the cards, will palm one or two cards so that you can't see the fact that he's got a card in this hand while he's shuffling. It's not random. He's intentionally made sure it's not random. But everybody sitting at that poker table thinks it is a randomly shuffled deck. No deck of cards has ever been actually random. The closest thing they could come to would be a random number generator on a computer. But computer random numbers are pseudo-random numbers. They've got algorithms that produce that number.
Yeah, that's right. I agree with you fully on that. So let's say
so there's no such thing as actual random. What we have is pseudo-random, which means we don't understand the actual chain of events that brought about that event, but nothing actually is completely random. You just
Yes,
don't know,
I don't know. Yes, I agree.
right?
But my point being here is that in my mind, a next life doesn't have to be um, like my actions in this life don't necessarily need to have a impact on my next life. If there is such a thing,
Well,
I
if
just
there
need to
is
know
a
the
next life,
possibility.
that's not going to be you. That's the
Well,
real teaching, and that's the distinction between rebirth and reincarnation. Reincarnation is the belief that when that future life happens, it's me again. The reality is that no, it's not me again, it's something else.
okay, but um, how should I put this?
You can't.
Okay,
How
if
can you?
there, okay, so consciousness can't really is something that is that only
Dependently arisen. Consciousness, we've already talked a little bit about it, is
yeah,
dependently arisen. Okay. Now
yeah,
here's where we're going with this. And that is that while you are clinging, while you are caring about rebirth and reincarnation, you will keep asking questions. And no matter what answers I give you, you will reject them because you still care that rebirth and reincarnation exist.
well, I don't want to say that it exists because I don't know that, but
Well, you still
there's
care. You don't know,
yeah,
but you care. You want
yeah,
it to be true.
there's just one possibility in my mind, and I haven't heard any good evidence by anyone why it's not a possibility, and that is that there is a next life, and my actions in this life don't have necessarily a positive impact on that next life, even though I would get enlightened in this life.
But you don't know anything. That's the whole point. That's what this sutta
Yeah.
is about. Is that the fruits and the results of the actions in this life affect this life. All right. That's what the whole point is here. That's why the big word starts there. The great big word, possibly the biggest word in the English language, if, if. And you
Yes.
skipped right by that word. And it was the biggest word on the page.
Yeah.
Okay, why did you skip the word if? Because of your confirmation bias. It's because you care about something that you know nothing about.
Yeah. But okay, so before you started practicing and you read this sutta, would you be totally assured by this sutta?
Well,
Totally
actually,
comfortable?
it depends upon whether this sutta can help people come out of their confirmation bias or whether this sutta actually, let us say, adds more weight to their confirmation bias. In other words, you can read this and be confirmed in your clinging.
Yes. Sorry, do you have 1 minute? I just need to go to the bathroom real quick.
All right.
All right. So you were talking about about the assurances. So it can, for me, it doesn't help me out of my confirmation bias. That's what you are saying, basically.
Mm-hmm. That if you already believe what you believe and you're attached to that, you care about it, even though you know nothing about it, you've heard all of this stuff, it sounds very delicious. But in fact, that's the reason why the teachings of Jesus did not catch on. But the teachings of Paul caught on big time.
Oh.
Why? The teachings of Paul were quite delicious. He promised something that Jesus did not promise. Heaven and hell. That,
Yes.
and making Jesus a big superstar high in the sky that's going to help you get into heaven. That's the teaching of Paul. And that's why Christianity caught on, is because fools like that kind of assurance. Where Jesus taught things like the kingdom of heaven is within you.
Yes.
It's not way out there someplace.
Yeah.
It's not a promise. Yeah. It's an actuality. And so here you are clinging to promises instead of doing the actuality.
Yes. Yeah, to me, it's just a terrifying idea that.
Pardon?
To me, it's a terrifying idea that I can be reborn into a next life and that my actions in this life don't have an impact on that next life, but that my consciousness or experience gets transferred.
Okay. So that's satisfying to you because you're dissatisfied with this life. You want another shot at it.
No, I actually don't want to be reborn.
Okay, well then don't. And the first way that you can stop being reborn is by stop clinging to the idea of being reborn.
I don't see how that would stop such a process.
Well, just let it go. Stop thinking about the future. Because that's what rebirth is all about. A deep, dark future you know nothing about. Only the promises by some charlatan. That in fact the whole teaching of rebirth is a control issue. If somebody can get you believe in rebirth, then you'll go to that person and say, what do I do to have a good rebirth? And now he's got you. He owns your ass. If he's a Christian teaching about heaven, then you're a Christian and you're going to pay him and put money in the plate and do what you're told to do because you think that his teaching is delicious. The reality is you don't know.
Yes. But do you then acknowledge the possibility, regardless of it's helpful or not helpful, that there could be a next life where the fruits of this life don't have an impact on the next life?
Well, I don't care. I don't need one. I don't want one. I plan not to be reborn that way.
You plan, okay, but is it a possibility?
How do I plan? I plan on it by not having much of this life either.
By not being reborn in this life.
So what you're telling me now is that people who are reborn without them having any say-so in it at all.
As far as I know, it's a possibility. I'm not saying that it's true because I honestly.
But if it is true, then people are reborn without any choice.
Yes.
Okay, like the Christians believe is that after you die, You've got a soul, and that soul is like a football, and God's going to kick it one way or the other, and you've got no choice about it now. You're completely under the control of some authority figure.
Well, it could be right. Like like I see how such a belief is not necessarily helpful, but I feel like that it's being denied because it's not helpful. But the whole point for me in pursuing Buddhism, and not the religion type, but is that there is no opium in it per se. And I feel like Christianity is more of an opium, like a delicious teaching, as you say. And I just want.
And what is that opium? The opium of that you will survive death. Yeah. That's the opium. And you're drugged up right now, heavily sedated.
I'm terrified about the possibility. I don't want to be reborn. I want to.
Well, then don't. Stop it. I've seen you being reborn a dozen times in this call.
But we're talking about two different kinds of rebirth.
There is only one kind of rebirth, the kind of rebirth that happens in the mind.
And then you're denying that there's a life after death.
Well, the rebirth off into the future is still all in your mind, and you keep bringing it back up.
So the process of dependent origination, what I wanted to ask you is the body or the senses, the aggregates, they are one link in the process, right?
That's a complicated question. Go for your real question.
Okay. My question is then, does dependent origination continue after the breakup of the body?
It depends upon what book you read.
So,
in fact, if you read the book on the Visuddhimagga, it talks about 3 lifetimes.
Yes.
Now, if you understand those 3 lifetimes as the immediate past, the immediate present, and the immediate future, then it has some value. But if you believe the way that Buddhaghosa has put it out, which, by the way, Buddhaghosa was a Brahmin.
Yes.
And he was teaching Brahmanism in that book that he wrote. The question is, did he do so ignorantly or maliciously? And that's an argument that I've had with Bhikkhu Buddhadasa. Bhikkhu Buddhadasa goes for that he was a wise fool. He had a lot of information. He just had, like a gaping hole in his brain.
Yeah.
Okay. I take an opposite viewpoint. I take that he knew what he was talking about, and he chose to mislead people intentionally. He actually did know. A lot of people really do know the truth, and they teach otherwise. Most Baptist preachers, in fact, come to the point that they don't believe in Christianity, but now they're still stuck in the pulpit. Probably the best example of that is the Bible scholar who really, really knows the Bible because he studied it for years, and now he is employed as a senior professor at a Bible college, a seminary. And he has to teach his students what he now no longer believes.
Yeah.
That happens often, and that's the state that Bhikkhu Buddhaghosa could have been in. He knew what was going on, but he chose to write for the fools because there's money in it. He can make some money off of it. His family can get wealthy. But if he denounces his family, he's going to lose a great deal, just like a Baptist preacher would lose a great deal if he started teaching the truth from the pulpit. He'd lose his house, he'd lose his car, he'd lose his wife, he'd lose his children, he'd lose his job, he would lose his status in the community, and he would lose everything. So it's better just to keep lying about it.
Yeah. And have you seen Prapatuyo, his commentary on the Buddhadasa's allegations, I could say, about the Visuddhimagga?
Well, I'm much more interested in who associated with Bhikkhu Buddhadasa than who his enemies were.
Okay, yeah.
Because
All right.
the associations with the wise will have a few notaries, those who are, let's say, well educated, well skilled, well trusted in the Thai community, as opposed to, let us say, ordinary people who started out ordinary, remained ordinary, put on a robe ordinary, studied the suttas with their confirmation bias, and now are writing things of which they have no knowledge.
Yeah.
I could give you some examples of that, but I would choose not to.
Okay. Yeah, you don't have to.
Well-known Western monks are absolute fools.
Dhammarato.
I wouldn't call him. I wouldn't put him in that group. I would put him in the middle group.
Okay.
Those who know the truth but teach ignorance to ignorant people, and then will teach wisely to the wise.
Yeah. Okay, so
and that's the standard way of letting ignorant people remain ignorant.
yeah.
Okay, you just kind of go along with it. I've got a story about that, by the way. And this happened in Sri Lanka. Excuse me. It happened in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. A good friend of mine, David, who was ordained at that time, was going to Malaysia to get his visa. And when he went there, he decided to go to the big Thai temple in Kuala Lumpur, which happened to, at that point in time, the abbot of it, of this Thai Wat, was Sri Lankan. I don't remember his name. That was so many years ago. When David got there, this old monk, Sri Lankan monk, was having a conversation in English with a Chinese woman whose husband had just died. Because she was an ordinary person believing in rebirth, the Achan consoled her, told her that her husband was in a better place and all that kind of stuff. And David's standing over there in his robe saying, well, I'm wasting my time with this dude.
Yeah.
But he waited it out. And when he talked to the monk and said that he had come from Wat Suan Mok, this monk changed his personality completely. And that's very, very characteristic. I've seen it often. In fact, that's the way that Buddhism has traditionally been taught, is you talk foolish to foolish people. There was no reason for that senior monk to have disturbed that old Chinese woman by just telling her to get over it. Don't cling to the dead. He's dead now. Get over it.
Yeah.
That would have not been a good thing to do because she would not going to be able to get over it. That might have given her a great deal of grief. And so you go along to kind of let people be because you don't want to add to their suffering. You don't want to add to their dukkha.
Would you do the same thing?
I am privileged enough to know that I don't have to talk to old Chinese women.
Okay. But would you speak the uncomfortable truth to people?
Actually, Bhikkhu Buddhadasa, if there's anything that makes him extraordinary or unique, it's not what he taught, but who he taught. That in fact he was brought up on Sangha Dasasa charges in the 1930s, and the result of the or the outcome of the monk's court, called a Sangha Dasasa, was that he was teaching the right things to the wrong people.
That's an interesting decision.
Okay, and so he was teaching the right things to the wrong people because he was not interested in holding out. That traditionally a monk would go to a senior monk, let us say it this way, that the truth is only let out when the right person is asking the right person or the right question to the right noble at the right time, and that will then unlock the door, and the student then can be led into the noble teaching. Bhikkhu Buddhadasa has said it's time for us not to do this. Let's go back to the time of the Buddha and recognize that we will not spend much time in agreeing with them, but agree with them only long enough to get them to have faith in the teaching of the Buddha, and then he's going to start teaching them correctly.
So that's Buddhadasa's approach.
No, Buddhadasa's approach is let's let it all hang out. We've got truth here. Let's go ahead and put it out there, and those who can take it, and those who hate it will hate it. But we're going to be real. We're going to tell the truth.
Yeah.
Okay, that's Bhikkhu Buddhadasa's approach, and in fact, that's my instruction from Achan Po. Is that when I'm on the internet, I don't teach with the 1-2 punch. I only teach the super mundane, noble Dhamma. I do not teach ordinary beliefs that are held by ordinary people. I teach the real teachings of the Buddha. But I don't advertise. I'm just here. You called me. I did not hand you some pamphlet like the Jehovah's Witness would say.
Yeah, true.
I do not go out knocking on doors trying to spread the Dhamma. I only want to speak to people who are willing to hear it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm certainly grateful for that. I prefer the uncomfortable truth over the opium. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
But so you were saying it's according to which book you read about dependent origination continuing or not continuing?
Not necessarily. No, you're assuming that the book has power over you. It's not which books you read. It's do you know how to read?
Okay, so let's say I read the books correctly.
Well, so far you haven't. So far you've been believing all kinds of crap.
Yeah.
Because it fits in with what you already believed before that.
Well, I'm trying to understand it.
Because you really want to believe in rebirth. And yet now you're becoming terrified of the possibility. So look at the fact that you've been shifting some. You're a moving target.
A moving target. You're right on that. At first, I wanted it to be true, I guess, and then I thought,
I want it to not be true. And the reality is that you actually do not know, and it does not matter.
Yeah, the only thing is, like, when I ask this question, like, do you acknowledge, and not just you, but also other persons, every person I ask, do you acknowledge that there is a possibility of a life after this one where I lose?
The answer to that is I don't know and I don't care. And that's the easiest way I can say it, but I've heard a lot of people get a lot of confusion over a lot of the things that I have said. So let's be very careful about that. As far as the future goes, I'm not talking about whether rebirth or reincarnation exists or not. I'm saying for all future things, I don't know and I don't care. I do not know who's going to win the election next month, and I don't care. I do not know who's going to win the war in Ukraine, and I don't care.
It's fair that you say this, but because now I feel like you acknowledge the possibility at least, because you don't know.
I'm not saying that it's possible or not. I don't know even that. That in fact, if you go from pure physics, it's deadly not possible. It's strictly through physics, not possible. There's a lot of things that physics haven't figured out now. We're even in the sense of trying to figure out about what the original cause was. Was there a big bang or what? The answer is, I don't know and I don't care.
And according to physics, is reincarnation based on karma then possible?
Well, it doesn't matter. We're not interested in possibilities. We're actually interested in the reality of this moment. Not interested in the future.
But would you say it's possible?
I would say that you care too much about it. And that caring is what's going to prevent you from practicing the Dhamma correctly. That's why this is the first fetter.
Yes.
The first fetter. You have to get over this very first fetter and stop caring about the future so that you can start practicing in the present moment correctly. So long as you care about the future, you're not practicing correctly.
Okay, so yesterday or the day before, you told me something, a trick, and so if you ask 3 times, then you have to answer. So after this, I will not question you again about this. I will promise you that. So, is it, according to physics, possible that there is rebirth, reincarnation after death based on karma? So based on actions.
Do you want a fool's answer? Do you want a wise answer from someone who has studied the Dhamma? Or do you want an engineer's answer? Do you want a preacher's answer? What answer do you want? Let's go ahead and do the engineer's answer. Okay.
The engineer's answer.
You haven't heard that, all right?
Yeah.
The idea then is that there is a relationship between a person, which we will call now a soul, and the actions that person or soul has done. Now, there is much action. How many actions have you taken in the past 57 minutes?
A lot of actions, a lot of thinking.
A lot of actions. Do you think that the karma machine up there is keeping track of all of the actions? Well, it's got to. How is it going to determine what's a good action and what's a bad action? How is it going to weight them? What's a great big bad action versus a tiny little good action?
To be fair, like in the that's the Indian type of karma. But
I'm not an Indian. I'm an engineer right now. A lot of Indians are engineers, and one of the most important qualities of an Indian as an engineer is that he stops being a Hindu and becomes an engineer instead.
But as an engineer, why do you talk about karma?
Well, I'm using the word karma because I'm talking about action, and that's the definition of the word action.
But I mean, like rebirth.
We're talking about the karma machine, that machine that determines. Now, Christians call that machine. They give it a personality and call it God. The Muslims have that karma machine, and they give it a name and a personality, and they call it Allah, etc., etc., etc. Right? But whatever it is, good old whatever it is, the idea that we're refuting is that something is not only keeping track of all actions, say done by humans, and weighting them according to some scale so that it can figure out what's going to happen in the future. All right? So imagine what kind of computer that's going to have to be. That's trillions and trillions of times more powerful than any computer that humans have ever had. And where is that computer going to be located? Inside of a star or something? Not a chance. Things are very simple inside of a star. There is nothing in the universe as complex as the human Hindu belief in the karma machine. So let's go. Now, wait a minute. Just let's keep going with this. Let's look at a soul. How is this karma machine going to determine what soul is what, which one belongs to whom? In Nagasaki, 100,000 people died within a second. Let's just make it easy and put a bus full of people that goes over a bridge and they all die. Now here comes God, or here comes the karma machine. How is he going to know which one is which? Because now they're souls. They're no longer, I mean, the body's dead, it's gone. Where is the soul? Whose soul is it? Now, let's look at how many billions of humans there are on the planet Earth right now. Is 7 times 10 to the 9th. But with the belief of karma, oh, you can be reborn in an animal, so now you have to factor in all of the bugs that have ever existed, all of the animal life that's ever existed, and now we're up to maybe 10 to the 23rd, which means that we have to have, let us say, a karma security number, like a social security number, only this one is not 8 or 9 digits. This one has to be at least 23 or 24 digits, which means that it's even more complicated than DNA. And yet, what do you have inside of you that has your unique identification that is so strong and so solid that it will, in fact, survive death? And so the engineer takes a look at this whole idea of rebirth and reincarnation and recognizes that it is mathematically stupid. It is mathematically foolish. It could not possibly exist. It's just a it's a belief system. It's a concept that has never had an actuality to it. Automobiles and motorbikes and even chariots started out as a concept. And they can be manufactured. And so you do have an automobile, but the automobile itself is just in your mind. The chariot is just in your mind. That's why Nagarjuna took Milanda's chariot apart to prove to him that there is no chariot there in that chariot. You take the basket apart, and you take the wheels apart, you take the ribs apart, and you do all of that kind of stuff. Where's the chariot? And you say, well, it's all over the place. But really, the chariot is in the mind of Milanda. It's not real. There is no inherent self or soul in a chariot. There is no such thing as chariotness.
But what about consciousness?
What about it?
I mean,
you haven't studied Paticca Samuppada yet. You're just off asking questions again. You're looking for confirmation, verification to confirm your bias.
I mean,
and so long as we're off on this kind of stuff, you're not learning any Dhamma.
Yeah. Well, I just think it's very important.
It's not important. It's what you mean by you say it's important means is that you cling to it strongly. That's what importance really is. There is nothing in this world important until someone clings to it and calls it important, and then it's important. Importance is a concept of your mind, just like chariot or rebirth and reincarnation.
Yes, and
so where consciousness is a word that we use to describe an actuality, an event, sight, exist. You can see. I can see. Every human, this dog here can see. The other dogs in the other room can see. The rats in the house can see. The geckos can see. Sight exists. Now, what does that mean? Sight consciousness. It exists. Can be proven over and over and over again. So many tens of thousands of times it's been proven that we don't even bother to put it into a scientific experiment because it's clearly obvious that seeing happens. That's consciousness. But consciousness is dependently arisen. Depends upon what you're looking at. If you've got your eyes closed, you can't see. If you're in the dark, you can't see. If the object that you're looking at actually is not there, then you cannot see it.
Yes. And consciousness has no identity, right?
Well, it's a process.
It's a
Of the
process.
human mind.
And
And the eyes and the body is a process.
and that process can go on beyond death, beyond the
No, it's
breakup of the
dependently
body.
arisen. When you close your eyes, eye consciousness disappears. You don't have it anymore. It's gone.
But since craving precedes
No, consciousness is dependently arisen. Period.
yes, but in the process, craving precedes consciousness, right?
Pardon?
In the process of dependent origination, craving precedes consciousness.
No.
Or it doesn't?
No, Sankara. Jiva, Sankara, Sanya, Nama, Rupa, Salayatana, Pasa, Vedana, etc. Tanha, Upadana.
Or let's say ignorance is the first
Right.
link.
Which is where you're stuck.
Yes.
Yeah, you're stuck in
So,
ignorance.
since ignorance precedes
If you stop
consciousness,
asking random questions about it, eventually I'll get around to teaching you Paticca Samuppada. So long as you're caught in asking a bunch of questions, you will never get satisfaction. It's kind of like a college student who goes into the college classroom with 100 or 200 people in there. Let's call it a physics classroom. And that student just will not shut up. He keeps asking questions that are irrelevant to what the teacher wants to teach.
yeah.
And I have a lot of students like that. They just will not shut up and listen. They keep asking questions and asking questions. And because of that, teaching them Dhamma is very difficult to do. It's impossible, in fact.
Okay.
Because they're being polite to you by answering your questions.
Yes, and I'm very grateful for that. And therefore, I will ask you one last question, and then I will shut up.
I don't think that this is going to be the last one. I think that when I'm talking about this one, you'll come up with another question.
I actually had a list of questions, and we've discussed pretty much everything. I will not bother you with the other ones. But in the in the Four Noble Truths, you have in the fourth noble truth, it says that there's an end to suffering, and that can be gained through insight.
The fourth noble truth is the eightfold noble path.
Sorry, I'm mistaken by which truth then. But my question comes down to...
The third noble truth is the end of suffering. And you can get to the end of suffering and could have many times during this hour, but you're still caught in questions. You're still caught in suffering. You haven't come to the state of knowing that you can come out of the suffering, basically by shutting up.
Okay, so it's really the last question. I will finish it and then I will shut up about it. So if there is no rebirth, only birth.
I didn't say there was no rebirth. I'm saying I don't know and I don't care.
Okay, but...
And you're still stuck on the clinging to, well, maybe it exists. What if it exists?
I mean, like, is rebirth not a necessary factor for the third noble truth? Because if there is no rebirth, then death would be the end of suffering.
Right now? You're not dead yet. Why don't you come out of your suffering right bloody now?
Yeah. But
into that stuff right now.
But the whole problem of samsara would not be really a problem if death
you don't
is the end.
understand Sankara. You don't understand it. You think it's a big pile of stuff. No, it's a small pile, and it all is between your ears. That's where your Sankara lies.
Is Sankara the same thing as samsara?
Pardon? Yes,
It's,
you keep doing the same stupid things over and over and over again. Like keep asking me questions. You've been asking me questions for the past hour.
yeah.
You're caught in the wheel of samsara right now.
Okay. Well, those were all my questions. So now I will leave the word to you.
All right. Well, this is what I'd like to do since we've kind of, let us say, wasted this hour. Why don't you call me tomorrow and we'll start talking about Dhamma?
Okay, I'll do that.
All right.
All
All
right.
right. Well, we'll see you tomorrow then.
Thank you very much for your teachings. Much appreciated.
All righty. Bye bye.
Bye bye.